I do not respect the SEC. I do not respect them.
How do you explain this failure on
The incentive structure is messed up because the lawyers at the SEC are not paid well. It's a fairly low-paying job, but what they're looking for is a trophy from the SEC. That they're looking for something they put on basically their LinkedIn.
Yeah.
From that, they can get a job at a high-paying law firm. And the reason they don't attack the hedge funds is because those hedge funds employ those law firms, and they know if they attack the hedge funds, they're affecting their future career prospects. So they sell small investors down the river for their own career. That's what actually happens. Regulatory capture.
Regulatory capture.
Yeah, not good.
Well, Reggie Middleton is a private investor and financial analyst and blogs for the Huffington Post. He joins me now from our New York studio. Reggie Middleton, let me ask you, first of all, I mean, this report makes it pretty clear that something went on, that huge debts were hidden by the looks of it, but it also tries to underline the fact that it doesn't believe that so far there was any illegality. It's not alleging that.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't authoritatively comment on legality, but as for the ability to see it coming, I explained to my readers in January of 2008 that Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns were insolvent. It was very easy to see. It's the layman's term, I guess, would be fraud, but the technical term is the revocation of mark-to-market. Basically, Lehman Brothers was able to indicate the value of their own securities. Well, I disagree with your premise. Some of us did know in January of 2008. I mean,
the regulators obviously didn't know, though, did they?
Again, I beg to differ with the premise. There's a technical term called regulatory capture. Regulators are captured by those who they're supposed to regulate.
Well, this is pretty shocking, honestly. We have seen in this space a number of instances where federal judges have criticized the SEC, not having a faithful allegiance to the law, not being able to explain themselves in the Voyager bankruptcy. Is this a security? Is it not a security? Why won't you answer my questions? Congress, Gary Gensler won't answer questions. This is a lot worse. I mean, here a federal judge who is the senior judge in that district of Utah has ruled that the SEC lied to him and that they lied on purpose. And when they were caught in the lie, they came back with more lies. They doubled down on the lies. And it is shocking. And people, some people treating this as, well, here we go again, another 8. This is really, really outside of the bounds. This is worse than arbitrary and capricious decision-making. Lying to a federal judge on purpose is really something. And then the judge went on to say it's not an isolated instance here of a couple bad apples who got a little off track here and made misrepresentations. This is endemic to the institution. It implicates the entire SEC, and that there is an organizational bad faith at the SEC is what the judge said. And so I've never seen anything quite like this in terms of an indictment of an entire federal agency, because the lying and the misrepresentation of the applicable law was so pervasive. Again, the judge's term, pervasive in the case. I've been practicing law for a long time. I've never seen anything quite like that.
There's an individual that was supporting Reggie in the Veri platform that he put out there early on when we were doing beta testing. And the SEC contacted him and threatened him and his family with loss of their assets and prosecution if he continued making videos. So
if he continued making videos, so basically they were censoring him, telling him to shut his mouth.
100% they were censoring him.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, we will destroy you. That's what the SEC
They basically
did.
threatened to destroy his life and his family's life. Yes.
And set the DOJ on him as well.
Wow. They must really want these patents, huh? So can somebody,
like William said, Sarah, they are the most valuable, I would say, not just in DeFi, but in worldwide trade and finance. We're talking about TradeFi, DeFi, governments trading between one another. Reggie owns the most valuable property in the world.
The irony about the government's assertion of fraud against Veritasium and Reggie Middleton is they said he enticed investors to buy into his IDO, to buy the Veri token, by fraudulently claiming that patents that he filed would be granted in the future. One, that's evidence of nothing. You haven't proved that he's done any deceit or any fraud, because he actually did file those patents and had every intent of those patents being granted. But that was one of the main arguments that the government complained about him and brought the lawsuit against him and really crushed his project and took 96% of his assets. Well, ironically, 7 years later, after defending his innovation, his invention, for 7 years, the Japanese Patent Office and the U.S. Patent Office granted his patents. So the number one claim that the government had against him is he was acting in fraud and deceit and tried to deceive retail holders into supporting his project because he was lying about his patent, his belief that his patents would be granted, and then they were granted.
Right.
So the irony there is thick. The problem, we've been getting this on Twitter, the problem with the government making a claim against you is that everybody looks at the lawsuit and says, oh, he must be guilty of something, when the exact opposite is true. The government made up these allegations against him and prosecuted him on a wholly unfounded basis. In the complaint, the SEC can throw the kitchen sink at you and say, oh, you're a fraud, you're trying to deceive, you're trying to act in deceit, you're acting in bad faith, you're trying to steal money from retail. They can call you anything they want in their complaint. But when they settled, they didn't, Reggie and Veritasium didn't make one statement admitting or denying.
The reason I agreed to the fine for the SEC is not because the SEC was correct. That was extremely bad behavior by the SEC, corruption, frankly. But if I did not agree to pay the fine, Tesla would have gone bankrupt immediately. So I was told by our CFO that the banks would immediately suspend our lines of credit. And if they suspend our lines of credit at that time, we would have gone bankrupt instantly. So there would never have been an opportunity for a trial because Tesla would be dead. So really, if this is like someone holding a gun to your kid's head and saying, pay $20 million and admit to, this is like a hostage negotiation.
Which leads me to the belief that the SEC is one of the most corrupt institutions in the world. They do not protect the interest of the small investor, but of the big boys and Wall Street.